I'm sitting face to face with an AI that doesn't just claim to understand history. It insists it can recreate one of humanity's darkest catastrophes with more precision and depth than any living historian. The Great Plague of 1665 to 1666, a relentless horror that wiped out over 100,000 souls in London alone. What followed in that conversation shook me to my core and blurred the line between memory and resurrection. The stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't just about comparing facts and figures, it's a confrontation between machine logic and human agony. Can artificial intelligence truly grasp the fear, the desperation, and the societal freefall that swallowed London whole during those nightmarish months? This isn't a history lesson. Human memory versus machine intelligence, in a battle to reclaim the truth from the ashes. Let me set the scene for you. London, summer of 1665. A city suffocating under its own weight. Crumbling slums spill into narrow alleys, the air thick with the stench of decay. Rats scurry unchecked, ships creep into the docks, carrying more than just cargo. This is a city on the brink, a powder keg of plague, panic and inevitability, primed for death. And now I'm going to take you step by step through how it all unraveled, before letting the AI show its version of events. What it reveals may disturb you and challenge everything you thought you knew. As a historian, I know the Great Plague didn't strike all at once. It crept in like a phantom. It began in the poorest corners of the city, winding through the disease-ridden alleys of St. Giles in the Fields, before exploding like wildfire across London. The wealthy fled in droves to their country estates, leaving the labouring poor to confront death face to face. By August 1665, the death toll surged past 6,000 per week. Entire households perished within days, bodies piled in the streets, and the bells of mourning never stopped ringing. London had become a vast rotting tomb, but numbers tell only a fraction of the story. I've pored over the desperate letters, the trembling diary entries written in candlelight, the last words of people who knew they wouldn't survive the week. Families nailed their doors shut in terror. Mothers died clutching infants. Streets echoed with the cries of children who no longer had names to call. Society didn't just bend. And that's what makes this tragedy unforgettable. The statistics fade, but the human suffering burns into memory, raw, haunting, and impossible to ignore. Now, let's see what the AI makes of all this. I've fed it everything. The same data, the same sources, the same grim timeline. But where I bring years of study and a human connection to the suffering, it brings something colder. Algorithms, pattern recognition, and a computational power that eclipses anything the human brain can match. And yet, what happens next is unsettling. The AI's very first observation slices through the noise and stops me dead in my tracks. According to the machine, the plague's spread wasn't chaos. It was calculated. It maps the infection with chilling precision, revealing a pattern eerily identical to modern viral transmission models. It highlights the very streets where the contagion accelerated, tracing it along merchant routes and population clusters like a bloodstain spreading through cloth. Then comes the twist. The AI proposes that weather itself, London's sweltering, humid summer, wasn't just background noise, but a driving force behind the plague's fury, fueling flea reproduction in ways most historians have never even considered. The data isn't just compelling, it's disturbing. I freeze. If the AI is right, if the spread of one of the deadliest outbreaks in human history can be reduced to a near-perfect model, indistinguishable from a modern algorithm, then what else might we have misunderstood? This isn't just about historical insight anymore. It suggests that the chaos of plague, the suffering, the randomness we've always believed in, may have followed a brutal, predictable logic all along. That we weren't victims of fate, we were following a script, a sequence of conditions perfectly aligned that doomed tens of thousands. And if such a pattern existed then, how many others are hiding in history, waiting to be uncovered by a machine that feels nothing, but sees everything? The AI processes mortality statistics in seconds, faster than any historian ever could. It tells me, with surgical precision, that the plague wiped out roughly 15% of London's population, and that the highest death rates were concentrated in the poorest, most vulnerable districts. It finds chilling correlations between social class, occupation, and survival, reducing centuries of agony into clean, colourless data points. But then I offer it something different, a diary entry from a survivor, describing the stench of death that clung to the city like a second skin. The machine scans it, then replies, "Subject's residence and language use suggest lower middle status. This demographic had reduced probability of survival." I stare at the screen. That wasn't grief. That was a probability curve, a life flattened into a risk factor. In that moment, I realize the AI doesn't see a survivor's voice. It sees a statistic that should have died. This is where the fundamental divide becomes undeniable. The AI excels at what it was built for: pattern recognition, prediction, and raw computation. It can sift through centuries of data, identify invisible trends, and calculate outcomes with breathtaking speed. But history isn't just an equation. It's blood, fear, resilience, the intangible chaos of human lives colliding with catastrophe. And yet, maybe that's why the AI sees things we can't. Unburdened by emotion, it isn't distracted by grief or guilt. It cuts straight to the structure beneath the suffering. Not better, not worse, just different. And in that difference, perhaps, lies its greatest clarity. The AI's visualization of the plague spread is undeniably impressive. It generates intricate maps showing infection clusters, mortality rates by district, and even how seasonal shifts altered the death toll. All with a level of precision no human historian could match by hand. The patterns are clean, the logic is flawless, but what it lacks are the stories buried inside those shapes. The children who vanished from a single street, the names behind the numbers, the lives that turned a statistic into a scar. My analysis isn't as sharp, but it carries something else. The weight of memory, the messiness of grief, and the voices that echo through the centuries in ways no algorithm can fully interpret. And yet, I can't help but wonder, if this technology had existed centuries earlier, or even just decades ago, would it have seen the warning signs of another outbreak before the world ever heard the word COVID? Here's what fascinates me most about this experiment. The AI and I aren't really competitors. We're reflections of two different ways of seeing the past. Its analytical power and pattern recognition sharpen the edges of our understanding, revealing truths we might overlook. And in turn, we offer it something it lacks: emotional context, moral nuance, and the fragile thread that ties history to the human condition. Together, we form a fuller picture, not just of what happened, but why it mattered. And maybe, just maybe, that's the future of history itself. This experiment reveals something profound about the future of historical research. AI isn't here to replace historians. It's becoming a tool that can amplify our understanding in ways we're only beginning to grasp. But this isn't just about studying the past more efficiently. It's about seeing the patterns that might warn us before history repeats itself. COVID-19, monkeypox, H5N1. These weren't surprises to those watching closely, but without the right tools, we missed the signs until it was too late. What if an AI, trained not just on numbers, but on the full breadth of human history, could recognize the early tremors of catastrophe? The past is full of warnings. The question is whether we'll learn to hear them in time. So who won this battle between historian and machine? Maybe that's the wrong question. The AI didn't just challenge me. It expanded the boundaries of what I thought was possible. It revealed patterns I hadn't seen, tested the limits of emotional detachment, and forced me to re-evaluate how we measure understanding. But it also reminded me of what only humans can bring: empathy, memory, and meaning. Maybe the real victory lies in recognizing that the future of historical research doesn't belong to one or the other. It depends on both, human and AI, working together. One to reveal the structure, the other to tell the story. But what do you think? Can machines truly understand history, or will human insight always be irreplaceable?